Oh, howdy, my name is Gabby. Today we will be looking at a melee weapon that I and many other Pyro players often overlook. The back scratcher. It's not a weapon that you see frequently used nowadays, for better or for worse. While there are reasons as to why that may not be a common occurrence, I think that like many other Pyro unlocks, the back scratcher is very handy if you use it correctly. For this episode, we will explore some situations where this weapon performs really well, cover its pretty apparent weaknesses, and maybe I'll be able to convince you to try it as well. Now, before we begin looking into the weapon description, I think it's important that I share some interesting history of this weapon. Back in May 2010, a player named Mr. Roizo has come up with the Fancy vs. Nasty fan update for TF2, with some hats and alternate models for existing weapons in the game. Among those was the back scratcher, which was surprisingly intended to be a reskin for the extinguisher. Valve took notice of their creations, and later, some of them were put in the game in a subsequent update, with some slight changes to fit TF2 a little bit better. In addition to that, the back scratcher was also turned into a full-on new weapon instead of just being a reskin. And ever since that day, aside from a few bug fixes, the stats on it have not changed in the slightest, which you can't say the same about a lot of the other unlockable weapons in the game. So, let's take a quick look at the back scratcher's description. The back scratcher is a melee weapon, or a tool, more specifically, that actually has a very simple design. You deal more melee damage, all health packs and lunchbox items heal you half as much, and other healers only give you a quarter of their normal healing to you. So, let's go over each of those three stats and break them down so they're a little bit more understandable. Let's start with the additional damage. 25% damage boost means that you will now be dealing 81 damage at base, 110 on mini crit, and a whopping 244 on crit. Careful, Damonites, this garden rake deals more damage than an ancient Scottish battle axe, and it randomly crits almost at the same rate, but for the sake of this video we're gonna ignore random crits because they're a little bit silly. But is that damage bonus actually useful? And what do the stats mean by other healers? Well, let's find out together. The Stockfire Axe is widely known as one of the worst weapons in the game, despite having basically no changes. And it's all entirely because of the lack of benefits for the class that it's on. For the majority of classes in the game, a melee hit is a last resort option which can take off 50% of any remaining health that your attacker has, because a melee is easier to hit compared to a shot, doesn't have self-damage like all explosive weapons, and going for one is a lot quicker than reloading. The flamethrower does all of that, and it does it way better, so there is no real reason to switch to your standard weapon to deal melee damage when your primary is already quite effective with it. So, to balance it out, the weapon needs to either deal more damage to make it worth to use it instead of just holding your mouse for a little bit longer to make it a good finisher, or it needs to have some sort of utility for the Pyro. 81 damage is absolutely not bad in terms of last resort damage, as it does only 7 less damage than a default weapon mini crit, which can help you finish off close range targets after you've softened them up with your flamethrower for less than a second. Yeah, some of you may already notice that this makes it sound eerily similar to the extinguisher, right? Well, you'd be correct, especially you would be at a certain point in TF2's life cycle. At one point in time, the extinguisher was nerfed to only do mini crits to enemies you're facing. So, ironically, some players would use this weapon as it was planned to be at first, an extinguisher reskin, because at that point they were doing basically the same thing. As we've mentioned, extra damage is not the only thing that can make a Pyro melee good. The second upside of this weapon is the increase of health gain from health packs that are spread around the TF2 maps. Small packs now heal 53 health instead of only 35, and medium packs now heal 131. This essentially turns every small pack into a medium pack, and every medium pack now almost heals you to full in a lot of situations. Pyro is a fairly tanky medium health class, and you can very frequently survive with around 30 to 20 HP in an interaction where a light class would lose. This means that a singular medium pack can bring you up to over 150 health, which is the most important health threshold in the game, especially against your second biggest counter, Sniper. The best thing about the back scratcher is that this buff is passive, and you don't have to pull it out to benefit from it like a couple of other weapons. This allows you to play in the backline a lot better. Usually when you spend time behind the enemy team, you will take a lot of damage because you'll not have access to your medic. However, all that said, because you have the enemy health packs present, you will always be able to heal up to a good amount of health, assuming you can pick your fights well. But hey, you'll still need to do your job at the front. Wait, wasn't there a third stat somewhere? Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, there's no real way of going around this downside. I mean, you literally cannot. The healing penalty is passive, just like the health pack buff. This stat also mentions healers, but who exactly is that? Well, the sources that are impacted by this downside are all mediguns, the amputator taunt, dispensers, and the payload cart. However, you can still get the same amount of health from Victim Sudden and Mad Milk, Conqueror buff, and medic arrows. So basically, you will now need to always ask for arrows from your fellow medic. Having your usual healing provided by your team taken away from you is a massive downside for a class that is centered around occasional support. Not only that, but it also makes it significantly harder to participate in sustained fights, be it on the defending or the attacking side. All this being said, this stat does not make this weapon unusable. It's far from it, as a matter of fact. So, how should you, as a good Pyro, use the back scratcher? While yes, all health sources other than the health packs heal you at a pitiful rate now, you can actually use this to your advantage, as you now can be a permanent Uber builder. Ordinarily, people build Uber with Scout, who hits himself with the Boston Basher over and over, but that strat requires one of your team's most important damage dealers to stay far behind the front line and help out your medic instead of meat-shotting everyone in their sight. Having you as a Pyro stay slightly behind enemy lines but always ready to support their team is not something you shouldn't be doing already in the first place, so this can absolutely be used in your favor. Also, this kinda goes without saying, but this weapon is pretty much meta in medieval mode. I felt like I should mention it even if it's obvious, as it was introduced to the game at the same time as the medieval mode as its own. Additionally, what I forgot to mention in my previous video, this weapon pairs perfectly with the thermal thruster, as it gives you a good finisher tool and helps you out when flanking to offset some of the damage that you'll be taking because of your lack of secondary. In addition to all of that, this weapon performs especially well if you know which map or map in a game mode it's best used in. One of the best uses for this weapon, for example, is in the King of the Hill game mode, as you will frequently be switching between attacking and defending, and also, because the maps are usually pretty small, they make it a lot easier to flank the enemy team and pick off stragglers. Now, I won't list every single map where the back scratcher would perform well, as you could find that out on your own, but to help you out, I can give a pretty good example that you can use to base your weapon choices on. Take a look at Kong King. This map has quite a few flank routes, you can very frequently weave in and out of combat, and it has lots and lots of small and medium health packs dotted around everywhere for you to use. On the contrary, if the map is very open and it has few health packs, or if there's a lot of full health kits, then you wouldn't benefit from having it equipped over the extinguisher, for example. So, to sum it up, this weapon is a tiny bit situational, but that is a good thing in my opinion. I think that every weapon should have a clear specific use case where it's fun to utilize and it's helpful for your teammates. Thankfully, the back scratcher is great on all of those fronts, which is part of why I hope you give it a try yourself in the middle of the match. It's definitely not a weapon that you would want to run full-time, trust me, you wouldn't get much done, but instead, it's more of a thing that you can switch to under specific circumstances. I hope you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful. Subscribe if you like this content. My name is Gabby, and goodbye.